So today I just want to start with a couple of brief introductions. So first, Matt, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Miyamoto, and I'll be presenting today with Scott and covering some of the Civil 3D related features for BIM 360. I've been in the reseller channel for a little bit over a decade, and prior to that, I was a civil engineer working on site development and transportation design projects. I started out as an application specialist with Ideate, and now I am working as the IST project manager for Imaginate Consulting Services.
Oh, thanks a lot. And again, brief introduction for myself. Again, my name is Scott Burke. I'm the AEC Cloud Solutions Program Manager here at Imaginate. So I work with our technical team in relation to the Autodesk BIM 360 solutions. And I also used to work as an architect and have been basically working in the reseller channel for about 20 years now. So it's been a long time. So I've been in the industry about 30 years. Makes me feel really old now. All right, so this is the agenda today. So we're certainly going to be talking about the current situation that we're in, the challenges, Autodesk response to the COVID-19 situation, and we're going to be talking about the BIM 360 solution platform here, administration, project setup, workflow, and the different tools that are available to you both as the point of a designer, either whether you're a civil engineer, MEP engineer, structural engineer, architect, any of those situations here. Then we're going to go over some of our just jumpstart services if you need that and some other resources, and of course finish with Q&A. And as mentioned before, you can enter your questions at any time in the Q&A panel, and when we get to the end of the session, we'll start with the first questions in there, of course. So again, with the situation, we're having a lot of issues right now, of course, as we know with the COVID-19 thing. We have a lot of issues with working from home. We have a decentralized workforce, and that's the first challenge here. And then, of course, we have a decentralized workforce working from home, and we also have hardware issues that we need to deal with, meaning that a lot of the Autodesk products and things that we use require certain levels of hardware. And then we also have to share data. You know, we have, of course, servers in the office. Can we get to those servers? Are we using remote desktop and so on? And then we also need to collaborate too, which is different than just simply sharing files, of course. Collaboration is when we're talking with each other over designs, red lines, things like that, of course. And of course, still sharing the files. So one of the first things we kind of need to think of it as an owner or anyone that has a company that need to have their workforce work from home is hardware. Now, of course, we know people can remote in and there's internet at home, and in many cases, people's home internet are better than our offices. So people have their own computers at home, but the problem is, are these computers powerful enough to handle some of the Autodesk software that we need to use? And are they even the right OS? A lot of people have Macs at home because that's all that they need for homework. So a solution, of course, is if you're already doing this, many firms have already kind of standardized on laptops, and they just get workstations that people can bring home. And maybe you have a certain number of those, but not enough for all your staff. And what we've actually had a lot of companies doing is, hey, well, just take your work PC home, come into the office once, get your work PC, take that home for the duration of this. And they can work that way. You can also, of course, use remote desktop. Nothing wrong with that either. The only issue with a remote desktop that can your internal network handle your entire staff remoting in to all your computers. It's okay when you have a few people doing that from home. Someone's sick, they can't come in, whatever, they'll remote into your desktop to their computer from home and work. And that's okay when you have a few people, but when you have 100 people in your firm all trying to do this at the same time, does your network infrastructure support that? So again, we have immediate issues of sharing the data. And we have traditional ways of doing this. This is what we all do right now: Dropbox, Google Drive, SharePoint, whatever, right? And we're sharing our files that way. And that's okay for just simple file share. But it isn't really working on the files or live editing them or really collaborating. Then we have to think about, well, how will we collaborate? Obviously, we have phones, we'll have WebExes like what we're doing today, but sometimes we need to look at our files together and things like that to be able to transfer information via red lines when you're designing, and so on. So Autodesk, in response to the situation that we're in, has decided to allow people to have an extended free trial of some of their flagship cloud collaboration products. So starting on March 24th, customers can log in and create free accounts into the BIM 360 docs or BIM 360 design for Revit services. So this program basically allows you to use this software commercially, as many people as you want in the system, until May 31st. And at that time, they may decide to extend it possibly as well. And this is available, and this is important to both new customers as well as existing customers. If you want to just expand the use, maybe you already have 10 licenses, but you want to now bring in the 30 other people of your company that was not using it yet. You will be able to do that even if you have paid licenses. So on Autodesk website, they have their Autodesk COVID Resource Center, and that's where you'll find the links to get into the free trials. They give you the information right there. So again, when we're talking about if you don't own BIM 360 at all right now, it's actually quite simple. So in this case, you would just pick someone in your firm to be the trial administrator. And all that they would do is they would use their email to set up a trial site for either docs or for design. If you're going to use design, you don't need to do one for docs because design has all of docs in it. But if you're just going to use docs just for file transfer and other things I'll show you here, then of course you could just sign up for docs. So have that one person go in there, and what they can do is they will just invite everyone in your firm into the site, and then you'll have access to the software for your entire firm. Now, if you're a paid user of BIM 360 Design already, then in this case, what you'll need to do is pick someone else in your firm who is not in your system right now and does not have a BIM 360 Design license associated with them. If you have to, you could even create a Gmail account, right? And create an Autodesk ID connected to the Gmail account or your home email. Create your site, invite all your staff who are not already assigned to BIM 360 Design licenses into that site. Once they're in that site, they're actually allocated a design license, and then they can be invited into your paid doc site. So that's how you would do it. If you already own it, you already have a couple of seats, then you can have someone who's not in your system create a trial of BIM 360 Design, invite the rest of your staff who are not allocated licenses. Once they're in the trial, they will actually be available to add to your hub, to your environment. So that's how you would do that. So again, have that trial administrator invite all your staff into that single trial site. And again, this is just for design, not docs. And then they can be invited into your design site. Now, there is an option for docs too. If you have docs and you have some licenses, but you want to expand that, then yes, there are ways that you can go ahead and get the trial licenses into your doc site. It's just a little bit more complicated. So just please, contact your local Imaginet sales rep, and we can get you set up to add free licenses, the trial licenses, to your existing doc site. And docs is just a little different because design allows the bring your own license methodology, meaning other people can have their own licenses and connect to other sites. So that's why that's a little bit easier. It's a little different with docs. So again, talking about the Autodesk solution here, the BIM 360 platform, and that's really what it is. It's a platform, just like Autodesk or AutoCAD can be a platform, and then it has architectural desktop in it, or AutoCAD architecture as it's now called, or AutoCAD MEP, or even Civil. You have AutoCAD, but then you have the vertical products, right? Civil 3D and such. So the solution here with BIM 360 is, of course, that path from uncertainty to predictability. That's what we're looking for right now, desperately, right? Is predictability. So again, this solution allows you to digitize and collaborate. So you can put PDF files up there, AutoCAD files, Revit, various different design file types can actually be put up there and viewed in that environment. And of course, we can integrate and automate certain workflows. You'll see that with some of the red lines in issue management. And there are analytics in the software too, so you can analyze how many issues you have, how many issues open versus closed you have, things like that. But again, it's also about collaboration. So it's not just simple file share. It's really about sharing work, both if you're using design, then you're really collaborating and storing your projects in the cloud, or if you're using docs, you're sharing information, but you can still do a lot of collaboration that way. So I also wanted to briefly talk about this kind of the architecture of the system. So we have Autodesk Forge at the foundation of all of this. Autodesk Forge is a kind of a web-based programming language that Autodesk has created here. And they've basically written all of their tools, their BIM 360 tools, on this platform. But the point of the platform is it's meant to be open. It's an open API. So other third-party vendors of other different types of software that Autodesk is just not what they do can interact with the data if, of course, you give them permission to do that. So you're allowed to create programming interfaces with the BIM 360 data and bidirectionally exchange it with other applications if need be. And of course, because we have all the data in one single location, it becomes a place where we can analyze how we're using our data, issue management, and other things like that for the other tools that we're really not talking about today. There are tools for clash detection and construction coordination, and tools for construction administration, field execution, and such. But today, what we're talking about, these are kind of all the core tools. We have design, coordinate, and build. Briefly, coordinate is for clash detection, and BIM 360 build is for construction management in the field. BIM 360 design, though, is the platform for people to collaborate in the cloud with Revit and or Civil products. And then docs is the foundation here. So some people just need docs, or they can upgrade to the BIM 360 design solution. So the first thing I want to talk about is once you've signed up for your trial. So if you haven't already got a site, then of course you're going to need to sign up for that trial. You'll get an email to activate the site. Once you've done that activation, it takes you then into the administration page here. And there are two levels of kind of key access in BIM 360. There is the account administrator. Account administrators manage all the projects, create the projects, create the companies that are going to be working with you, and they bring in the approved member list. It's just basically a pool of people that you're allowing to assign the projects. That's also where you would invite your staff as an account administrator. Then we have project administrators. These are people who are given permission to run each individual project. And you can have multiple people managing a project. So they can't create projects, they can't add members to the master list, but they can absolutely totally control their own project, and they can add and remove people from their project from the approved list. So when you activate your site, you first have to activate your account. There'll be an email like this that you'll get, or a web page after you create the trial to activate your account. And then you'll be taken to your account profile page where you'll already be in there as an administrator. And if you choose, you could add more administrators to your account right here. But what you're really doing here is, if you can see where it says Buildings Inc., that's where, of course, you would be putting in your company name. You could upload a logo here just to kind of give the page a flavor for your firm, right? That firm identity there. The next thing here is you need to find companies. You need to define these companies because when you're creating members, you have to assign them to a company. That's a mandatory requirement. So at very least, you'll just need one company, your own, in there. If you're going to be inviting other people outside your organization, you just need to quickly create a company for each of those groups. And it's very easy. It really is just give them a name and what is their trade. And that's the only requirement. Nothing else is needed. And there's also something here called roles, which are your job function among a project manager, a designer, an architect, a client, an owner, whatever you want. These roles can be customized, or you can use the default ones in the list. So you just need to basically define those roles. Because again, your name, the company, and roles are actually tools used for controlling permissions in the system. That's why these exist. So here you can see these are the roles that are in the system, but you can, of course, create your own. And of course, you might want to add more account administrators and additional members. So once you've created and managed the roles in the companies, you can then bring people into your project and then give them appropriate rights, what company that they work for, in their default role, and what their access level will be if they're just a regular user or an account admin. So if we just pop the system open here, I'm logged into the BIM 360 master account area or enterprise area. And right here, this is where I've gone in and I've given my company a name, and then I've gone and I've uploaded my image for my logo here, and then I have, these are just administrators. As a reseller, of course, we set most of our staff as administrators. You typically probably only have 2 or 3 people in this environment. The next thing, like I said before, is that you also need to then create companies. And so these are all the companies that I have different companies working on our projects. And it's very easy. You just hit the add button, put in a name, and then give it a trade type. Just pick one of the trades out of the list that closest resembles what that company is. If you want, you can put the company address in and a website and a logo, but the only thing that's really needed is just a name and the company type. That's all needs to be there. Again, this is for permission control. Then there are roles. Again, roles very easy. This is just your job function, right? And this is another way to control access, and you'll see where that comes into play. These are default roles. You could come in here and type in any name you want. You create a new job title that isn't already in the system. If you don't want to use the commercial manager term, you can remove it right now. And what we're just doing to the right here is setting default access. When you add someone to a project, if they're a BIM manager, it's assumed that they will be a project admin, but once you add them in, you could demote them or change their permissions. If someone's brought in as an architect, they may only have access to document management or document management and design collaboration if that's what you want to have it set to. So that's all that is. So those are the kind of key things that you have to create first. Then when you go to members here, so on the members, you can add people to your project in a couple of ways. One, you can simply add people to the member directory. And actually in this area right here, you can put in email addresses with commas. So if you already have a list of emails somewhere, or if you can get a list of emails just as comma separated, you could paste them all in here, hit add, it would put all the names in the list. So if I have a single email address here, and I simply hit add, and then if I had 30 email addresses, I'd see 30 entries. And then I could start typing in one company here. And if it's going to be the same company for a lot of people, I can, of course, just copy and paste that down. And then I'm going to set a default role. What is this person's function typically going to be? He's just an architect. And I'll save that. Now we'll add that member in. Another thing that you could do is you can import members by spreadsheet. And by doing that, one, here's the download for the spreadsheet. So you download an Excel file. You can open the Excel file, copy all the people and permissions and companies in there, and then hit choose file and pick the file to upload, and it will populate the members that way. So either of those methods work, whatever way is easier for you. So moving on here from the administration setup is now project setup. So again, only the full administrators can create a project. So they're going to create the project. You're going to enter the project information here. Then you need to activate the services. So the services are, if it's just BIM 360 Docs that you're using, you would simply activate BIM 360 Docs. If you're using design collaboration, you have to activate document management first. Wait till it turns green and it says active instead of inactive here. Then you can add design collaboration. And when you're adding those people, basically you're just adding an administrator. I'll show that. And that basically activates the service. And then once you've activated the service, you want to add members to your project. You just start typing in the names. It will come in with the default company name and their default role, although you can change those if needed. So again, back in the system here, if I go over to projects, here's a list of all my projects. You would simply hit add, give the project a name, give it a type, as an office building, whatever. If you'd like, you can upload an image here. If you want, you can answer all these other questions that is not required. Only the things with the asterisk are required. And of course, the language, English. And then of course, it's project address and any other information that you feel would be nice to store here. Of course, if you put a project address in there, then some of the tools that indicate weather for that day on the construction site can be used. So that's why the address is nice. And then right here, you could upload a logo for the project if necessary. As soon as you hit save and continue, and I'm just going to search for my projects here, it's going to take you to a page called services like this. Now you can see in this case, I already have document management active, but if it was not active, I would not be able to turn on design collaboration until document management is active. So right here, you would hit the activate button and you simply just start typing in someone's name. So I'll put my name right here. I'll hit save and it will activate. In this case, I'd be turning on project management, but I would start with document management. Once that's done and it says active, then I would be able to go down to design collaboration and do the same thing down here and add a person for this by hitting the plus, and then you'd be able to put in an administrator for that service. And it could be the same administrator for all the services. So that's how you would basically turn the service on. At that point, the project is activated. You would then want to go to members, and this is where you're going to start adding more people to your project from the approved member list that the account administrator did and approved. So if I hit add here, I can type in anyone's name. So I'll type in Joe here, and I could bring Joe Eikenseer in. And then maybe I want to bring in Joe Hedrick as well. He's another civil engineer who's going to work on the project, and I hit select. And then right here, see how it defaultly brings in the company, although you could change it if you wanted to here. And then you could also change what their roles are going to be, and then what their levels of access. So Joe's IT, so he actually should have full admin access to everything here. And maybe Joe Hedrick is just, he works in the system, but he's not a manager. Let's just say in this situation, he's just going to be a member. And I would continue to do this for my staff, all the people I want to be part of the project. Once that's done, the project will then be set up. You've set it up, you've brought people in there. I'm just going to cancel out of this right now because I just don't want to add any more people to the project. So now I want to move on here a little bit to just kind of working with the project a little bit more here. And this is, kind of setting things up, setting up your standard, your folder structure, all those things. So again, with a paid design license too, I want to talk about this. This is another thing here. So I created a docs project and I turned on design, meaning I've given people access to design. But if you own a paid, and this is only for those who already have paid licenses, for those who are using your paid licenses, you have to activate it in two different ways. One was the way I showed you here in the services, where you go in and you put someone in and you give them access to docs or docs or design, I meant to say. But in the situation where if you're using a mixed situation where you have some free design that you've gone through a trial and some that you already have, but you already own some license, but you haven't assigned people to them yet. So again, your Autodesk software coordinator then. So this is the same person that assigns people access to AutoCAD or Revit or Civil 3D, right? This is not in the BIM 360 environment. This is at the regular subscription management area. So you have to go into your Autodesk account, and if you're the software coordinator, you could do it by product. You would see BIM 360 Design as an available product. And then you would go in there, and then you would assign users to the product. Because, again, BIM 360 Design is bring your own license. What that means is that if I have two firms, each firm can buy their own licenses of design and then invite each other into their own hub. So either hub owner can essentially be the manager of the hub or own the project. And you can freely share data between each other using BIM 360 Design. But this is that extra step that although you have to assign access to it, meaning through that permissions folder I showed you in BIM 360, to actually get the license of BIM 360 Design, if you're not using the trial, then you have to be assigned to it here. These are the paid licenses only. And again, this is no different than giving someone access to your Autodesk products. So now let's talk about BIM 360 Docs at the first level. So Docs is really for everyone. This is not just for architects, engineers. It's for civil engineers, structural engineers, MEP, architecture. Anyone is just using AutoCAD, doesn't matter. In fact, BIM is almost not even required really for Docs. It's just nice to have, but not a requirement actually. You could actually be completely hand drafting, scan your documents in as PDF and still use Docs. But again, BIM 360 Docs is all about publishing your files up to that cloud area, sharing it with people, viewing the files in that environment, marking things up, communicating, collaborating. That's really what that's all about. It gives you full control over who can access what, access history of your projects, access control, all of that. So that's the first thing you do is once the project has been set up, you've added members, you want to go up here to what we call the module selector. Okay, so the module selector is where you go ahead and pick the different aspects of the software that you need to use. So right here, you pick the module selector, and we can go into document management. Now, based on your rights, you're going to have different things here. Most users will simply see project home and document management. If you have design, you'd see design collaboration. If you're an account administrator, you'd see that, of course, and if you've been designated as a project administrator, you would have project admin. So I'm going to go to document management because I'm the administrator for the project. So a couple of things about the interface real quickly. So again, module selector is here to pick your different modules. This is where you pick and search for projects. So although I'm in a project called BIM 360 Design for AEC, I could type in Food Mart, see, and I could quickly get to a different project, but I want to stay in this current one. So now I'm in my current project, and we see we have folders here. So next, we have two very distinct areas, and I don't like to call these things folders. I almost like to call them areas or sections, okay, or look at them as rooms. So we have the plans room, if you will, the plans area. That's where you're going to be putting your construction documents. We're building the building from that. That if for lack of a better term, that's almost like the CA, the construction administration folder. Whereas the project files are going to be all your supporting documents and any live models that you're working on. So for what we're talking about today, we're really just talking about project files. You'd only be using plans if you're getting into CA, and this is where the original documents that the building is being built from are going to be stored and versioned there. So today, all you really need to concentrate on is, of course, the project files area. And in this case, for either of these, but here, I would go ahead and you can add subfolders, and then you give them names. So you can organize this any way you want, just like Windows Explorer if necessary. It's actually a good opportunity to maybe rethink your folder structure and maybe make it less complicated. I've been seeing a lot of that going on, and a lot of firms have taken that opportunity to simplify their sorting structures and such. So for instance, I have project design file, specifications, photos, schedules. Inside my project design files, I've given each team basically a place to work. So I have an architectural folder, a civil folder, an MEP folder, and a structural folder. And again, if I look at any of these, I go to the three-dot menu here, and I can go to permission mode. And I like to call this a mode because if you have this open, you can now freely click any of the other folders, and it leaves it open. So what I always recommend too is that if you set permissions at a high level, then whatever permission you set there will automatically cascade down into all the subfolders. So if you want to create a more controlled environment, I always recommend starting at the bottom and working your way up for permissions. Another best practice here is don't put people's individual names here, because if you were doing it that way, every time you add a new person to the project, you may have to go through 30 folders and give them the permission to it, which would of course be tedious. So a better way to do that here is notice that I can add in this case, a company name. So when I hit add, see enter names, email addresses, roles, or companies. So I can give a specific company access to the folder. That way, as I add more people to that project, everywhere where that company has access, they instantly have access there. So I don't have to give everyone individual access if necessary. So right here, we add your members in. Again, I could type in someone's name, Paul Smith here, for instance, and give him extra level. Even though he might be part of one of the other companies, I could give him access level above what his company has if needed. So I could give him full control of a folder here. So see, it's by the name, Paul Smith, and I've given him full control. Now, he's already part of the structural firm, which already had view-only rights, but I gave Paul Smith extra rights, so I can do that. If I remove that, then he just has basically the standard rights here. And I can also put in, well, if anyone's a project manager, so I'll go project manager here, and I'll add that in. And as the project managers have view, download, and upload rights. So see, that's a role permission. And if I expand that though, see, no one's actually been given the role of project manager. But as soon as I bring someone in and I make someone a project manager, they'll already have access to this folder then. So again, instead of using individual names where possible, it's better to use roles or company names to control permissions to the folders. Now, what I've done here is if you look at each of these folders, the architects, which are these two, which are myself and Matt, even though he's civil, he's also a project admin. That's why he has access. But I've given the MEP and the structural firm view and download rights only to this folder. If I go to the MEP folder, the MEP engineer has view, upload, and edit rights, but everyone else is just view. The same with the structural. The structural firm has view, upload, and edit rights here, but the MEP installers can only view. So again, this protects your files. They can view and link your files, but they can't open them or upload new files and overwrite them. So you have a lot of control here because of the permissions here. So that's really that first step, is create your folders and then set the permissions. So moving on here, the next part is uploading your files, which is also very simple. In the BIM 360 Docs environment, you can simply drag and drop a file from your desktop directly into the system. So any file type you like, you can bring that in there. Real briefly here, let me just show you the file or approved file list so that you can understand that. So right here, supported files. These are viewable files, meaning you can view them in the environment. You don't have to download them to look at them. There are like 60 different file types in here that you can upload and view, everything from MicroStation to AutoCAD to Revit, to SolidWorks to Inventor, Navisworks, all IFC. All those things can be brought into this environment and viewed directly without downloading them. So it becomes a universal viewer, which is also another nice feature, of course, right? So I can either just upload files this way too. I could go in, select a file, hit open, and it's going to load the file. I'm just going to cancel it in this case. Or let's say that you have a file and that file has links in it, whether it's AutoCAD or whether it's Revit. Then what you can do is when you're uploading files into this environment, there's another option here called upload linked files. If you do that, then I'm going to go over here, and it's just going to take a second here to kind of read my site there. So right here, here are some files I want to bring in. So the architect is the parent file, but the MEP and structure are linked into it. So I want to hit all three. But because I'm using the linked files upload tool, right now it's actually going through the upload process. So it's uploading the files. And then once it's finished uploading each file, so I have to stay connected right now because it's uploading the file. So now it's uploading the third one there. And when these all get uploaded, then it's going to ask me, okay, well, which one of these is the parent file, right? Which one is the one that all the other files are linking into? You're really uploading one file, but with links into it. So here, maybe it's the MEP file, and these two are linked into it, or the structure, or in this case, the architecture. So right now, they're already uploaded in the system, but we're not done yet. If I cancel, we'll cancel the upload. So I want to make the Revit architecture one the parent file that I'm uploading into this environment. When I hit continue and I can close out of this website, it's going to process it. At that point, I could turn the computer off and go home. In this case, going home is walking to the couch. So now we're there, and I come back tomorrow morning, so that's back from the bed to the kitchen table where you're working. You're going to go ahead and the files will be ready to view. They're already been processed, and you'll be able to simply click on them. Now, another thing here, if you want to upload files, say you're in Revit and you don't have design, or you have Revit LT, so this is true for Revit and Revit LT. As long as you have design, then one thing you can do is this. Under File, I can go Save As, and I can save as a cloud model. This file is already in there, but I could save that as a cloud model. So let's go ahead. I'm going to open up a new file. So say you were opening a new file, and it's going to be a template file here. And I'm not going to be using Worksharing. So this is important, right? I'm not using Worksharing, or I have AutoCAD LT, which doesn't have Worksharing. And what I want to do is I want to store, though, my file in the cloud and work from it in the cloud as a single user. Again, you just need a docs license for this. You go over here, File, Save As, or Save. Actually, Save As in this case, sorry. File, Save As. I can save that as a cloud model. So this is not a work shared cloud model. This is just a model that's saved directly into Docs, which you can do, and work on it there. You're saving it into Docs. But again, we're not in work sharing mode here. It's just a single user. So thus, if you have LT, you can store your model in the cloud. You could work from the office, go home. If you have Revit at home, or you have a laptop, you can work from anywhere and access your file from anywhere. Don't have to think about server space or any of those things. So right here inside the Save As, a cloud model now, I just need to pick the right company that I'm working with, so my own company. Here's my project. I click on the project files, design files, the architecture folder that I have permission to work in, and I'm just going to give the file name there. I'm just going to call it Archbase. And I'm going to save it. So now it's saving the model to the cloud. This is not using design. What we're simply doing is saving the model to the cloud. That way, a single user can open it from the cloud, work on it, and when they hit save, it's saving to the cloud. So you're working on a cloud model, you can work from home, you can work anywhere. So this is a nice feature. Again, just as this plain old docs here. So now that model is in the cloud. And if you look at the website here, the web portal, you can now see the file here. Now it's important to understand that whenever you manually put a file up here or save a cloud model up here, we're looking at a snapshot of time. The file is under it. You can't actually see it here. Okay, so what we're looking at now is a processed file. So if you are going to, say you have a file like the other one that I have here, back in the Revit there, so this other, and we'll close that, and this other file right here, I already have it developed. I have sheets and everything. And I want to upload it to the cloud so that someone could mark it up and view it who doesn't own Revit. In that case, I'm going to come over here to the Collaborate tab, and I'm going to go to Publish Settings. And under Publish Settings, I can create what we call a set. And then under that set, I've assigned these 4 views, these sheets and this. Now, when I upload the model, if someone downloads it, they get the whole file. What we're controlling here is what can be viewed in the cloud and what can be marked up in the cloud. And that's all we're talking about at this point. So when I do that and I save the central, that it remembers those publish settings so that when you get to the cloud, when you view the model, I can only view in the cloud here on the web portal, the 3D view, and those 4 sheets. Now, if I download the Revit model, the whole model is here. I would get the entire file. If I link it in, I get the entire file. The publish settings are strictly for what you can view for markups. That's what that really means. So that's basically what that's talking about in this situation. Now, again, viewing design files here, this is going to give you a lot of control here as well. This is nice. So again, this opens this up to your non-Revit user staff. So now you can go ahead and you can pick, let's start with a CAD file. I've uploaded an AutoCAD file up here. When I click on that, I have 3D views if there were any 3D views. In this case, we have model space. And if you had 5 layout tabs, you would see the 5 layout tabs here. In this drawing, I only have the 1. If I go over here to settings, if I go to appearance, I could switch this to black and white. Where I have a black background for AutoCAD, that's typically easier to view these, right? And if I pick something, because this is a file with some objects in it, I can get information such as the properties of that line, the properties of this display unit. See, it's a produce display stand and such. I have access to the layers right here, so I can turn layers on or off. I have all that access. If I was in here as well, I'm going to go into, I have 2 versions. Here are both versions of the file, the first version and the second version. I wonder what changed, compare versions. So I have an AutoCAD file here, uploaded at 2 different times. I'm using my comparison tool, and anything that was changed is color-coded. Here is the change. And then if I change to my overlay to side-by-side mode, I get my slider version 1, version 2. So I can see how the drawing was changed. Really invaluable tool here. And that's just AutoCAD. If I then move on to, if I put a Revit file up here, and I view the Revit file, so of course I'm going to have all the 3D here. If I go into the 2D views, not only do I have the 2D views here, and let me just change the properties here. I want to get back to the white for the Revit files. Oops, wrong one there. Here we go. And back to configuration. We'll turn that back on. There we go. So right here, I can, view the file, navigate within it, have access to all the different views and such. All the Revit property data is there, of course. If I select something and look at properties, it's all here. I have my model explorer. If I want to turn things on or off, I can absolutely do that. So I can turn off the things that I don't want to see, in this particular model if necessary. So I have access to all those kind of 3D components if necessary. If I am in a 3D model over here, click on that. Obviously, I can move around. I can have my model explorer here where I can turn off elements if I need to. I have all the properties like we already showed you there. I have, all those same tools as before. And if I went back to the 2D view here, and I'm curious, what does it look like if I was standing here? I could just use my 2D location tool, look this way, and now I'm looking at the 3D version of the model. This is just navigation instructions. So now I can walk around in that model if necessary. So really nice tool there. And again, if I'm in the full 3D view here, I could even come in and put like maybe a section in the Y plane. And then I can pull that section with a widget around to see that building in different ways and navigate within it and so on there. And my other favorite feature here is even with the Revit file, I'm going to use draw and compare. I'm going to compare versions 2 and 3 against each other. Hit compare, and because this is Revit, we have an enormous amount of things that we can now do here. So we're able to compare the drawings against each other. We're able to see all the objects listed that were changed, edited, or added to the file, removed from the file, any of those things. Sometimes it takes a second here for it to kind of go through the drawing and regenerate everything there. Let me try that again here. Make sure it's actually and comparing properly. Try that again. So again, it'll take a minute. It goes through the process, and then it shows a itemized list like this of all the things that change. So for instance, here are the 5 items that were removed. Here are items that were modified. I inserted the MEP file, so that's why there's 1,500 items, because I imported the MEP link file right here. And if I look at the modified elements, things that were modified, and I'll zoom into this little cache office down here. If I pick the door, this is where it used to be, and this is where it is now. And if I pick the wall, that's where the wall was, and this is where the wall is. And if I want, I can hit this tool here and download an itemized checklist of all of the changes in that file as a Excel document. And then I have a list of all the changes. So it's another nice feature here in the draw and compare area. So the next thing here that's important is the desktop connector. This is a utility that you download that allows you to link files from the desktop or from the cloud into files that might be on your network. And this can be even if you're offline. So when you install the desktop connector, it actually puts like this virtual drive on your system. You can see right here, BIM 360, BIM 360 Team. So if you don't have access to Team, you would just have the BIM 360 one there. This allows you to sync objects and save things from any Windows application directly into the cloud. So these items are basically synced to your desktop to the cloud. And you can also work in offline mode where it will keep all the stuff offline while you're working. And then when you get back and you save things to those offline files you were maybe working on, they would synchronize them back with the cloud once you have internet access again. So again, this ensures everyone has the latest version of everything. So when you install the desktop connector here, I just want to briefly show that. So let me go ahead and open up my Windows here, or just my Internet Explorer. And we'll go up, or maybe I can just open up a new window here, go to this PC. See, there's a BIM 360 folder now. And if I double click on that, I would go to my project or my company that I'm working with in this case, and see I can directly navigate to the project, and I can copy and paste folders in here. I could be in Microsoft Word and save a file directly into the cloud. Down here in the tray, I could say, hey, I need to work offline. I could be in AutoCAD and link a file that my consultant uploads into the cloud from the cloud into my local network file if I choose to do that. So again, some really nice features here. All right, so moving on. So now I want to pass this over to Matt so that he can go ahead and show you how you might interact with BIM 360 design, but from a civil point of view. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to give Matt presenter rights here. There you go. All right, Matt, you should have your rights right now, and you should be able to share your screen.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
So as Scott mentioned, once we have all of our BIM 360 account information and access set up, and now we also are able to leverage the BIM 360 desktop, or excuse me, Autodesk desktop connector, we really have a way to enhance our collaborative workflow process. Looking at this from an infrastructure perspective, one of the things that we are enabled to do is have this centralized location where, as he just mentioned, a file can be posted by a consultant or as by a design partner, and it can be linked directly into our design files to help us in that design process. So if we take a Revit and Civil 3D collaboration look at this, we can now work with a Revit file that's been exported out, posted to BIM 360 docs, and leverage the Autodesk desktop connector to externally reference that file directly into our Civil 3D drawings for assistance in the design. So if we think of something like a site development project, for example, one of the first things that I would want from the architect is a building footprint or a site layout that they're working on that can come from Revit. And in this case, Scott's gone ahead, let's say, and he's exported out a 2D AutoCAD drawing from Revit using one of the site floor plans. So if I take a look at BIM 360 docs here, I can see that I've got some reference files, and there was a floor plan called site plan that was directly exported from Revit straight to a 2D AutoCAD file. So I'm able to access this through my BIM 360 docs account. I've been provided folder access by Scott as the project owner, and I can use this in my design. So taking it into Civil 3D is just a matter of now using the standard tools and standard workflows that we normally have, but with access to the BIM 360 docs locations for those file storage. So when I have a Civil 3D drawing here, I've gone ahead and done some pre-work and set up an existing ground model. This is survey grade survey data that's establishing my existing ground conditions. And I want a way to incorporate that building site plan from Scott into this Civil 3D drawing so that I can start to grade the surface around it. So our standard XREF tool here will allow us now to navigate to that BIM 360 docs location. As we install the desktop connector, it'll show up as a system drive that you can get to, and through our hub and access to the project that you've been invited to, we can navigate our way to the files that are available. And in this case, I have my reference files folder set up, or location set up, and I can bring in that site plan. So this is going directly from my BIM 360 docs location into Civil 3D. And you can see here that the drawing file is now there in the background. This is the exact 2D exported drawing from Revit. And with the standard next steps within my design process, I would start to now take a look at this, look at the shape, look at the area where the parking lot is, and start to develop my proposed grading plan. So that's how I can take that information directly from BIM 360 docs using the desktop connector to access that BIM 360 location and bring that straight into my Civil 3D drawing. Now, within that reference of the design process, our next stage, once I've got my grading established, would be to coordinate more information back with the architect. So in this case, with Civil 3D, as I start to create the grading plans, I'm developing a site that would provide a topographic surface that would be very beneficial to see in a Revit model. And when we're looking at that process of sharing topographic information and Civil 3D data back to Revit, the next piece that is recommended would be to generate a shared reference point coordinate. Shared reference point coordinates help Revit resolve that 20-mile limitation that it has within the models. Civil 3D drawings are set up with world coordinate systems that are generally not near the origin point. And within Revit, model limitations there don't allow it to see data beyond like a 20-mile range. So when we're trying to bring in Civil 3D data that's world-based coordinates into Revit model, this shared reference point tool allows Revit to see a defined reference point from a Civil 3D drawing that's been exported out and assign that to a spot in the model and line everything out. So within Civil 3D, this is a subscription benefit. So if you don't see the tool readily available, it might be something that you need to log into your Autodesk account to download and install. But what you can do is simply export out an XML file that would then be used and consumed by Revit to import and then assigned as a location. So within the Civil 3D drawing here, now once I have this site plan with the information for the building location laid out, I can define a reference point coordinate, perhaps the bottom corner here of the building. And then to export out that coordinate as a shared file or shared item, I would simply access it from the toolbox and go to my Autodesk shared point or shared reference point coordinate. Exporting the shared reference point coordinate is a fairly simple process. All you need to do here is define the origin point and then specify a north location or north direction. And after that, it's going to ask you to define a unit for the drawing as well. And that's going to push out a .xml file that, with, again, access to the Autodesk desktop connector, can be posted directly back to your BIM 360 docs folder. If I have been provided access to read and write and also edit folders, I can post this directly to the architects folder in this case as well. If I've been provided limited access or restricted access to the architectural folder, I may have another shared location where I'd be saving these files and then notifying Scott that these files are then there for him to reference. So that first step would be to export out that shared reference point coordinate file. And again, that's going to resolve our location placement issue that we would see sometimes within a Revit model because of the fact that it is not near the origin in Civil 3D. And that is just a plain XML file. The secondary point or portion of the collaboration process, along with that XML file, would be a way that we need to share our topographic data. So as I, again, am working on the design for this, inside of Civil 3D, I would be developing out a mass grading plan or a site grading plan that would allow the contours of the surface below that building to be more commonly designed for use and functionality. So in this case, I've got some areas here around the surface, around the site that I've already started grading. And I actually have gone ahead and developed out a proposed design as well. So once we have our proposed surface designed out, you can see that it's relatively flat in the middle. And then I've got some grading around the outsides there to tie it back into the existing ground. At this point, I do have a surface file that I can share with Scott as the architect. And if I wanted to create a composite surface, of course, I'd go ahead and create that composite surface to share that. Or if I just need to give him a small area where that building is going to be sitting, then I would go ahead and publish out just a smaller portion. Now, with the access to BIM 360, it does give us an additional tool along the collaboration line from the Collaborate tab here in the ribbon. Civil 3D's got a Publish Surfaces command. That's now a capability to basically automatically generate a shared Civil 3D surface inside of BIM 360 docs that can be linked directly into Revit as a link topography object. This is something that really reduces the amount of effort that used to be involved to get a similar output result from Civil 3D and Revit in the past. We normally would need to take the surface, copy it out to another file, explode it out down into polylines, plain AutoCAD objects that Revit can consume, and then send that out to the architect to link into Revit to build the topo surface. With this BIM 360 feature called Publish Surfaces, all I need to do now is click on the icon there to launch it and select my surface to publish out. It'll let me access BIM 360 docs once again because of the desktop connector. And in this case, if I am going to share both my topo surface and that shared reference point coordinate, I would want to select a file or location where I know that Scott's going to be able to get to everything. So if I do have access to that architectural project folder that he set up, I would want to find that and then share this as a linked topography shared file. So it's going to export out a version of this surface that Revit can consume. So I go through that process of number one, publishing out that shared reference point coordinate. In this case, I've also named it southwest corner so that he knows when he's linking that to the Revit file, he can tie it into the southwest corner of the building. And then I've also got that published surface that has been pushed out to the same location. And one of the reasons or main reasons why it's recommended that you do the shared reference point before or along with that published surface is the fact that the shared reference point is going to place that surface exactly where it's supposed to be within the Revit model. Without a shared reference point, if you're trying to link in a published surface as a topography object inside of Revit, you may need to manually move that around. It's not necessarily going to show up where you think it is. You may need to move it up or down or to the left or right, or in some cases, it might be miles and miles away from where your building is. So setting up that shared reference and assigning that to the Revit model as a location before you link in the topography object is going to make it so that that surface shows up right where it's supposed to be below the building when you bring it in. So once that shared reference file and your surface has been published out, you should be able to get back to your BIM 360 docs folders, or locations, I should say. And if I take a look here at the architectural folder, which was our previously agreed upon spot where we're going to do these shared files, I can see that I have a site grading that's linked topography surface for Revit. And I've also got that building southwest corner shared reference point XML file that Scott can use to assign the location to his Revit model. And at that point, it's back to Scott to take a look at Revit, and he'll be notified that there's some information there that he can share and he can use, and he can take a look at that inside of the Revit model. So let me share or get back to Scott, and he can take over and go through the Revit process.
Hey, Scott, we can't hear you right now. Can you check your sound?
Is it better now?
Yeah, thank you.
They must have gone in. That's weird. But yeah, real quickly again, sorry everyone. So again, we're linking files in. Back inside of Revit that is basically set. I'm saving my Revit file on my local network. Those linked files live in, or those files that I'm going to link in are going to live in the cloud as a collaborative space. And I'm using the desktop connector to bring that in. So right here, I import the shared coordinate file. I just have to pick, the base point in north here. And then I would pick that base point that BIM 360, it's in the cloud. I'm using the desktop connector to get to it. So here's the file. We can see the path right there. So here's the path right there, project name, project files and such. And I open that. So that links in the file. It's now part of it. So now what I would do is I would go to manage. I would go to location here, go to site, and it's an available site for me to angle for basically to base my reference point on. So I want to go ahead and make that one current. Now that I've made that current, I can now go over here to insert and also insert or link topography from the cloud location again. So it's just taking a second here to read the different BIM 360 projects that I have access to. Then it will show me the list of projects here, and then I can navigate to that file. So in this case, I'm in my project file here, see, project files, I'm in the architectural folder, and here's a topography file. And I'll link that in from the cloud. So remember, my file is living on the server, but I'm linking the files that are shared with me from my consultant in the cloud. So I'll just align this here. It brings in the topography file here on my site. I can go into the 3D view, and now I get actual topography here. And let me go ahead and shade that, makes it easier to see. And I could see my building site here sitting on the site properly. See my building on that site with a parking lot. We're starting to grade down for drainage and such. There's a main road over in this area right there, so that's the main road. And I'm looking at this though, and we had a conversation with some of my the building inspector and things like that, and looking at the plans and said, hey, we have some new setback requirements that we now enforce, and they just took effect this week before you knew about them. So we need to make some designs to your site location, which is fine. That's great. So I'm going to go back into the system here. Let me tab back over here. So now what I want to do is I want to collaborate a little bit with markups and issues to talk to Matt about getting something adjusted. So again, I'm going to go into the BIM 360 site here. And I'm going to go to his civil folder because he's given me the right to view his and just do these types of edits. So I need to tell him here, we need to move the building from this location here, which is too close to the main road. We need to push it back. So I can use the markup tools that are available to me here. So again, I'm going to use my polyline cloud option here. Cancel that for a second. Here we go. And I'm just going to draw a quick box around the building right here. Good. Then I'm going to draw some lines with the polyline tool here. I'm just going to say, hey, the building actually needs to maybe move over here, right? So I'm just going to draw a very simple box. I'll close that. And then I'll take the line weight of that and just bring that down a little bit. Let's put a little fill in here. So we'll put some yellow fill and make it, somewhat transparent. So that's pretty good. So that's where I want to move the building. And I'll put an arrow right here. Say move to this location. And then I want to add a text note. So I'll put some text right here and to say, need to move the building. And because of new setback rules. Nice spelling there. There we go. And now let's move this over here so it's a little bit better. There we go. Here. And I'll just save the markup. And I want to be able to kind of track this, and I now want to notify Matt about this. So now that I've saved the markup, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to create what we call an issue. And issues aren't necessarily negative things. It's really a communication tool, for lack of a better term. I'm going to put an issue marker here. I'm going to designate this issue as a building code issue. And I'm going to give it a title. Let's call it new setback requirements. And I'm going to assign this to Matt. So now when I assign this, when I hit create, he will be notified that he's been assigned this issue. And I need this answered. If you could answer it by, get this updated on the site by Tuesday, that'd be great. The owner, what's the root cause of this? Is actually a code compliance issue. And I'm just going to say need to move site to this new location right here. Let's move that properly here. Location due to new code requirements. And once I do that, I would hit create. That would then send an email over to Matt. And then Matt would get that email, be able to read what I'm saying here, be able to get directly to the red line and make the changes and respond to it. So Matt, why don't you take over right now? So I'm going to close out of the drawing here. I'm going to stop sharing there, and we'll let you just kind of see what you would see in the system to go to the issue. There you go. All right, you should be able to share now.
All right. So again, because we're doing this through a BIM 360 Docs project, as Scott goes ahead and creates that issue and saves it inside of that online portal, it does notify me via email, tells me I've got an issue that needs to be addressed. And when I go back into my portal or log in through Docs there, I'll see that I have a site grading plan. This was a file that I posted, I'd been working on, and I now got a notification here that this has markups and it's got some issues. So if I take a look at either clicking on the file here, or I can sort it through all of the current issues through the issues sorter up at the top, I can see that I've got one design issue. It's called zoning setback requirements. And if I take a look at that linked document, I'd be able to find out where it comes from. Now, if I'm working inside of Civil 3D at this point, I can take note that my original building was here. So this was the original plan where the building was relatively close to the road. And I see Scott's comment. I see that, it's a zoning requirement, so I need to make an adjustment to that location. So as I go ahead and continue on with my design, perhaps I'm now shifting that building farther back. I've gone ahead and added maybe another access road or some other content there. And I would be publishing out a new shared coordinate because that building spot's that reference point's been moved from the original location a little bit farther back. I've got a new graded surface around that, so I'd be publishing out another surface form to share. And then I could go into docs and answer that issue. So within the issue itself here, once I've gone ahead and made that change, I can open it up. I can change that status to answered. I can go ahead and take a look at the information that was in there. It's code compliance, as he had mentioned. It says, hello, Matt, can you move that building an additional 100 feet back from the road? So my response to him would be, I've adjusted the building location to address your zoning requirements. Please update that shared coordinate and link topography to reflect the current position. So now I've got a new version that's posted. I've got a response added in there. And as I answer that, Scott's going to get notified that the issue has been addressed inside of the system. Scott, so I'll go ahead and send this one over to you.
Great, thanks. All right. So again, Matt was able to see the markup when he was in the drawing. He saw that the markup that I made here. So I'm just going to open the same thing that he would have been able to see. So he sees the markup. He's uploaded that new file. So now I'm opening and say, oh, good. He moved the building to the new location. Perfect. There's the issue. I want to take this issue and I could then make it closed, put in an information. Yes, Matt did this. We're all set. And now the issue is closed. And then what I would do is I would actually take the markup and I would archive it. That would hide the markup in this view. I could always see the archive markup so I can filter them out. But basically, the markup is completed. It's no longer relevant, so it can be moved from visibility there. So again, we've now gone through a highly collaborative process. We have the list of the issue here. We can see the status. We can see the whole history and activity on the issue, who touched it, and so on. So it's a collaborative process. It's tracked. It's recorded. We have our red lines all in the cloud instead of just on random pieces of paper all over the office, right? So you can literally throw away all your markers now and all the red pens in the office and do everything online here. You could even use an iPad to open the drawing and mark it up from there as well. So there's a lot of possibilities here for collaboration. Also here in the BIM 360 world, you can also view many other file types, as I had already mentioned. So if I go back in here, we've already seen you can see Civil 3D, AutoCAD, Revit. Of course, if I go into Photos, then I can put photos up here and view them directly if necessary. So I can go into a different view so I can get thumbnails. So these are job site photos or things that I've just taken on the project here. So you can view them directly in this environment. If I went into my specifications folder, I could open up a Word file directly and not have to even download it to view it. And if you do have a subscription to Office 365, you can actually edit in browser right here and actually edit the file. So you can actually edit it right in the cloud. The same here, if I go back in the specifications, go back to list view, obviously I can open up PDF files here. These could be drawings, they can be regular PDF files, all those things. And again, I can view them. I could even mark up a PDF file. You can't mark up Word and Excel, but you can absolutely mark up PDFs. And then again here, I would have all different types of files in here. I might have my scheduled document right here. And in my schedule, I have Excel files I can open. And if the Excel files have tabs, as you can see here, I can click on the tabs of different workbooks within the Excel file and read it. And of course, edit it too if I have Microsoft Office or Office 365, I should say. So again, this does become the universal collaboration source and even storage location for documents, both in the field and in the office. So again, everything that we just showed you is just BIM 360 Docs. So just with a Docs application, you can do quite a bit with collaboration, saving files up there for reference purposes using the desktop connector. It becomes that kind of single source of truth and the ability to access that data anywhere. So now what I want to talk about is BIM 360 design for Revit in this case. So again, with BIM 360 design, you have all the benefits of docs included, so you don't need a separate license of docs. Plus, we now have controlled work sharing across teams both internally and with external firms that we want to bring into the system. Because it's unlimited data storage and unlimited projects, we don't have to have local storage anymore. There's no IT interaction other than the IT staff has to make sure that I have internet access, and that's it. We can again reduce rework because we have all those markups and all that information can be shared very quickly with my inside and outside consultants and team members and such. And again, I can access the data anywhere. I could be at home and look something up in the file and write a note to myself. If I have Revit at home, I can log in and edit the model like I was working in the office. It's extremely fast. In fact, people have reported to me that it's actually faster to use BIM 360 even when they're in the office than it was to store the files on their local file systems. So I always thought that was pretty interesting. Oops, there we go. All right. So again, the first thing, of course, just like with docs, is that you just have to do the permission. So again, it's the same process. If you've already started a docs project, if you've already set up your folders, and of course, as we mentioned before, manage the permissions for those folders, as I had already talked about, meaning the architects have access to this, but the MEP and structural engineers have read-write information to this. And if a civil engineer was not at my firm, in this case, Matt was at my firm, so he's an administrator, but if it was an outside civil engineer, I would have maybe given him view rights, but I would have also let him upload files because I wanted him to place my files there, but not necessarily open rights, okay, and so on, such as edit. So you have to set those permissions. That's just kind of standard there. But again, now you have that really secure environment, so you can share your files with the consultants, but they can't open your files. So then the next part here, of course, is opening up the file and sharing things in there, but in the 3D world, in Revit. So that's the first step here. So let me jump back into Revit. So one of the first things I did here in this other file, this is my empty template file, right? Remember that we had saved it to the cloud. Okay, so it's a cloud model, but it's not a Workshare BIM 360 design model. So I'm still using docs right now. Now I've decided, okay, I'm ready to bring the rest of the team in. We just bought our free trial, or we just bought access to BIM 360 design. So let me go ahead here, and now I'm going to turn on work sharing. As long as you have a design license, that will let you do this. Otherwise, it'll notify you don't have a license to do this. So enable work sharing, and these are just proving that, yes, I know all this. So one, users who do not have a subscription to BIM 360 design will no longer be able to work on this model. A work shared cloud model cannot revert to a non-work shared cloud model, meaning in the system. You can always download it and then pull the work sets out, make it a single user file if you wanted to. What this means is it can't be changed in the system, but I could download it, delete it from the system, and re-upload it as a standard file again if I needed to. And of course, to save changes locally, you simply hit save, and to save changes to the cloud, you hit Synchronous Central. So now, it's turning on work sharing. It's now using the BIM 360 design license. It's setting up the work sets that you do whenever you set up a project, when you turn work sets on, and I'm done. And I just start working. I don't have to get out and reopen it and get a local file. I don't think about any of those things anymore. The system completely manages the whole local file versus central file methodology. The methodology still exists. If I hit save to central, it updates the cloud model. If I hit save, it updates local invisible cache files that you don't see and that you don't bother to manage. So now I've saved the file here. I'm done for the day. I just have a template file here. I start, I'm done. So I'm going to go ahead and go home, whatever, come back in the morning, and I want to start working on the file. So how do I open it? Well, that's pretty easy too. So right here, when you're on your home page of Revit, on the left side here, you're going to see recent files. And this is where it may take a second. You'll see on top, like there'll be like a blue line kind of going back and forth because it's still refreshing. So it may take a minute before you start seeing all the projects that you have in here. And again, I'm connected to so many different hubs. It's a little unusual. It takes a little time for it to scan that. So right here under recent files, I see my company hubs that I can go to these other companies that I'm working with. Once I'm connected in there, I could go to my project with a single click. project files, just navigate to my folder, just like you were navigating to your network drive, right? And then I would just open the project. In this case, I'll open the more established project. And notice here that it does say that it's a work shared model. See that? Work shared cloud model. And I just click on it. Notice that there's no, do you want to create a local file? There's no central file. You just open the file. I'm in it. Done. And it opens really quickly because if you've already opened it at least once, most of the data is already cached on your machine anyway. So like I was saying, when people are working here, they sometimes report to me this is faster than saving it locally. So the key here is that you are saving the central every 30 minutes as a minimum. I think is always the best number there for that. So again, if I hit save, that saves the local invisible cache files that you don't really see. And if you hit save the central, it's uploading that file into the cloud and publishing the changes there so everyone has access to the changes I just made. So again, it's actually super simple to work on the cloud. And at this point, and there are other tools inside of BIM 360 Design that have a much more controlled process when it comes to sharing files with others. Right now, what we're showing you in this example is the live linking model. Another way is to use something called swim lanes and distribution packages, where you only release certain models to individuals. It's a little bit more of a complicated process, but very powerful. Maybe I'll show a little bit of that later. But really, what I really want to talk about here is just the basic live linking. So now I'm working in the cloud. I have a consultant that I've invited in. That consultant stored their model in the MEP folder, right? So that consultant is working in the MEP folder. He cannot open my architectural file because I've only given him view and download rights, but he can view it. That means that he can link the file, my architectural file, into his, and I can link his into mine. So that's really the next step here is once you've established and got your model up there, you want to link the cloud models here. So I would just use the standard process as before, link Revit. And then I would just, instead of linking to a location on my network server, I would locate a file inside the BIM 360 project right here, which I'm in. So here's the project. I'll navigate to the project files folder, the design folder, and I'm going to go into the MEP folder, and I'm going to link in from the cloud, from one cloud file into my cloud file, the MEP file. And now I've linked that in. And if we take a look here at the link manager down here, and I'll manage the Revit links, you notice here that it gives you the path. And it says that this is a cloud model, and it shows the project name, and then in this case, just the file, not the full path. If you saw a full path here, that means you use the desktop connector to bring in, which is the wrong way. And for a work shared model, it wouldn't let you do that anyway, or it would only let you see a published model. So that's how you tell that you're actually linking to a cloud model as well, is through the link tool there, the manage links. So now that we've kind of linked our model in, we're kind of done. Everything's been linked in. It could link in the structure and all that. So now I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm at a point where I'd like my project managers who are not Revit users, maybe even the client that I've invited in to see the file, whatever. So I'd like them to be able to view certain parts of the model in the cloud. So what I've done, as I mentioned before, is when you're in BIM 360 Design, go to Publish Settings, Step 1. Create a set. You can call it anything you want. I mean, I could create a new one here. Call it Demo, like so, right? I would set Demo as my new set that I want to publish. I could have published both, but I just want Demo. And maybe I just want to show them the elevations, and that was it. And I could have done that. But in this case, I'm going to select the 50% review. And it's just these 4 drawings right here, or 5, I should say. It's this 3D view and these 4 sheets. So in this case, could you just show me all the views and sheets in the set? Just these 5. So I save and close. The next important step is to save the central. So you save the central here. Because what you're doing is then taking those published settings and putting them into the cloud. Next step, manage the cloud models. So this allows you to see the cloud models, not the published, but the actual cloud models that you've saved in a project. So you navigate to your project. And then you don't have to navigate anywhere in the project because cloud models are kind of like in a bucket just dropped in the project. It knows where they are. So here are the 3 files, and this is the file I just work on, and I would hit Publish Latest. And then I can close out of this and close out of Revit, turn my computer off. Because when I'm publishing, it's not processing anything on your machine. It's taking your last save the central, which is why you should save the central before you do this, and it's publishing that so it's viewable in the web environment. Because if you look at the web page here with BIM 360 design, there's an invisible underlayer, if you will, for the live files that no one can see except the Revit users, or if you're using Civil design, Civil 3D with BIM 360 design, you can only see the live Civil files in that underground hidden area. What we're seeing on the web portal are snapshots in time of the model. So I've saved this file to Central 20 times, but it only says version 3 here because I've only published it 3 times. So to say that it was this is the third publish I just did, I hit that publish button. When I come in here, I'll be able to view the model as a manager or a non-Revit user. And now I have access to the 3D view. I have access to the specific views that the designer wanted to share with me. So again, I can come in here and do the same things where I can come in and, hey, I have a question about something here, right? I can put a box around that, or even, take this and, rotate a little bit. So it's really nice there. And say, hey, we need to move this thing somewhere, same types of things. So I can make markups. I can even have private markups that are mine or publish them so everyone sees them. And then what I like to do is after I put a markup in the drawing, I would then add an issue next to it so I can track it. Because whenever you put an issue in and you assign it to someone, they get a notification they've been assigned the issue. No information about it. Because the whole point is all information happens and is conveyed in the system. Email is simply a notification tool to notify you that you've been assigned an issue. So that's kind of the collaborative workflow, and that's what the publishing is for. Now let's say whatever you're working in Revit, and it happens, right? And the model, you can't save to it, it gets corrupted, right? And hey, you can't save the model, it's corrupted, whatever, halfway through a save, the power went out, internet went down. Things happen, or more commonly, the number one cause of corruption is someone opened the same version of Revit, but a different build number than the rest of the team, and it messed the model up. Okay, so again, as long as everyone's saving every 30 minutes, this is good. Well, here's the model. I'm going to click here, and I'm going into view versions. And you can see I've saved the central for this model 17 times. This is unlimited. At the end of a project, this number is going to be like 1,000. And you could literally revert the project back to any save the central for your entire history of the project. So I could go back a month, 6 months, a year if you've been working on the project, a year if you wanted to. So let's say model 17, which is the latest, is corrupt. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to use this tool to restore the last save the central. And then you just have to put 2 checkboxes here. I know what I'm doing. Yes, I promise I know what I'm doing. And what it's all saying here is that I am aware the risk that all versions later than the selected version will be permanently deleted. And I've notified the team members that if you're in the model now, save your changes elsewhere or just get out. If you save your changes elsewhere, that means that what you've done could be copied and pasted back into the new official model. If you can't do that, then you just lose 30 minutes of time, or in most cases it'll be 10 minutes, right, depending on when you last saved the central. So again, we can revert back to a fairly recent model without calling IT and literally do this in minutes and then get right back to work. And at worst, we might lose a few minutes, 30 minutes of time, right? So that's again why it's important to keep your save the central time as a rule for your company, not more than 30 minutes. That way you're typically not going to lose much time and work if there is a corruption issue. Or this could also be used where, okay, I'm going to take the model I'm in now, save it locally so I have a copy of it, because we don't like the design direction we went in. We want to change it, but we want a record of what we did now. I'll save it for later. And then you could upload it like as a storage file later into the system if you wanted. Then you could pick the older version where the model was where you wanted to start from and revert it back to then too. So a couple of different options here for reverting files. But again, it's very simple. It's very easy to manage. It's unlimited storage. When you're working locally on your network, you have to specify how many backups you want, and it won't go beyond that. Here, you can have as many as you want because there's no limit to file storage. So that's a huge advantage right there. All right. So that takes care of the publishing and version control, of course, there. So quickly now, I wanted to just go over some quick troubleshooting tips here that are always good to know. So again, if you're in Revit and you go to access the project to save a cloud model to initiate it, and you don't see the project, but you know it's there and you know you've been added to the project for sure. Maybe you're the administrator, but you don't see it. Most likely the case is that project already has a 2020 file in it, and maybe you're probably in an older version of Revit 19 or 18, and that's why you can't see it. And also, again, make sure that you do have permission. But it's most likely the case is that you have a different version of Revit than the version that's in the file in the project. Also, if you get a notice that you need to subscribe to BIM 360 Design, either if you have a paid license, your software manager has not allocated that to you, or if you're in the trial, they didn't actually add you to the trial yet. So, or they haven't turned on the license, the access for BIM 360 Design, so check those things. If the file is not visible, but the project is, then either you don't have access to the folder where the file is for editing or opening or viewing, or someone dragged and dropped the file into the system. They did not use BIM 360 or Revit itself to initiate an actual cloud work-shared model. They just dragged the file up. So that's probably the case there. And again, if folders are not visible, then most likely you just simply lack permission to those folders. So that's some handy troubleshooting tips that are good to be aware of. All right, so I'm going to hand this over to Matt now to talk about BIM 360 Design, but for civil now. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll give you the presenter rights there, Matt. Okay, Matt, you should be good to go.
Thank you, Scott. From the perspective of BIM 360 Design for Civil 3D, we're now again addressing the Autodesk COVID-19 response offering. And currently, collaboration for Civil 3D is not available in the free and extended access to cloud collaboration products offer. You can still purchase access to collaboration for Civil 3D separately, and collaboration for Civil is only available for the 2020.2 update or later. So if you are using a pre-2020.2 version of Civil 3D, the full enhancements that you can access through BIM 360 Design will not be available to you. Now, within the collaboration for Civil features, it will work with both free trials of Docs and Design. So that is a benefit. And if you need any information, please contact our sales representatives, of course. So getting into BIM 360 Design and Civil 3D. Again, this is something that you would need 3 pieces to run. Number 1, we already talked about the desktop connector a little bit earlier. We had primarily been focusing on BIM 360 Docs, but now we're going to also look at what enhancements are added with a design license. And this is with Civil 3D 20.2 or 2020.3, which is out as well. Along with the ability to create and manage the projects themselves. In the previous example that Scott had been running, he was the project administrator. So he had created the project, he had set up the account, he had added all of the users. With a Docs license and as an invited participant to the project, I would not have access to all of those higher level administrative features. But with BIM 360 Design and Civil 3D, myself as a Civil 3D user and as a civil designer would be able to get to that administrative level. In addition to the administrative tools, our Civil 3D projects can actually live inside of BIM 360. So rather than pre-2020.2, where what we're really doing is accessing a local copy of the file from Docs through the desktop connector, we can actually work with our files from the cloud. So you're going to see an option now to open files directly from the cloud through BIM 360 Docs. And you're also going to be allowed to leverage features like data shortcuts and external references from BIM 360 directly. We're going to see a new start page that appears in the 2020 install. So as you launch the program, your start tab is going to be updated with a new BIM 360 location that allows you to search through your projects and access your files. And it's also going to, again, allow you to leverage your existing workflows with XREFs and data shortcuts directly through the application from that cloud location. So looking at Civil 3D 2020 here, this is the same file that I had been working on, and I had updated that building's location, published that out to Scott using the Docs tools. But what you can really see now is the fact that we have a cloud icon there located next to that data shortcuts tool. If I go to a pre-2020.2 version, this is back in Civil 3D 2019, although I have a similar setup with similar files, and I am actually looking at BIM 360, the big key here is that it is navigating its way to my C drive. So this is still indicating that it's a local copy on my C drive that's been accessed through the desktop connector. When we're working directly in 2020.2 with design, we can get to that straight through as a cloud location. Taking a look at that start page that I had mentioned, when we're opening and working from files that are either local or cloud-based, you're going to see a new identifier there, where we can see that I have cloud-based files that have been linked and used recently, or I have also local drawings, and it'll give me that file path where it is. If I want to see only BIM 360 docs specific project files, then I can sort it there as well. And I do have a similar drop-down that shows me access to all of the projects that I've been invited to. And when I go into one of my current projects, I can see that I have these files either cached locally, or as we work with files and over the life of a project, you may have some files that haven't been used in a while. And those files, in order to save space on your system, might be removed locally and still live up in the cloud. So when I open that, it would recache and give me access to that. One of the huge benefits to this as well is the fact that from this Start tab directly, I can see that there is a file that's in use. And if I hover over that locked state, it tells me who's got that file open and when that file is being accessed. So at this point, I can see that the file is locked by me, Thursday, April 2nd, and I can see there in the background, I do actually have this one open. So that ability to leverage cloud-based drawings, and this is another one here where I have alignments and profiles. This is a file that's being opened directly from the cloud, and it's identified there in the title of the drawing file. I've got my data shortcuts, again, path directly to the cloud. It says here BIM 360 instead of the C drive. And if I have any established data shortcuts also pointing up to the cloud there, I can create those references directly from the cloud locations as well. So this is that same finished grade or proposed grade design that I had been sharing with Scott. And as I create that data shortcut, it links directly to the BIM 360 location, not a local folder. And everything now is, again, syncing back up there with the desktop connector running in the background. One of the other differences within the Civil 3D platform and BIM 360 design compared to Revit and BIM 360 design is that the desktop connector is sort of running in the background automatically. So anytime I make a change to one of these files that I'm working with from the cloud, as I click save, it is triggering that sync process in the background without me having to do anything. But that also means that every time I click save, I'm going to get a new version that's been posted to BIM 360 docs. So if we look back at some of our project files, this is in the online platform here, that site grading plan that we had discussed earlier, where the original grading plan was sort of close to the road, violating one of the setback requirements. And then I've gone ahead and addressed the issue, saved it as a new file, and posted that to Scott. If I go ahead and look at this through BIM 360 docs, I can see that I have 6 versions that have actually been posted. And very similar to what he was saying, where you, throughout the course of the project's lifecycle, you may have hundreds, maybe thousands of different versions here. At any point in the process, you can open up this version history, and you can always see who and when those versions were saved. If you need to make a past version current again, so maybe we had version 3 that was closer to the road, and then we went all the way to version 6, which is this one that's farther away. If we need to check it out again and put it closer to the road, I can go ahead and just say, I want to make version 3 current. And that puts it back up to the top of the list, and that becomes the current version of the file. I've done that, and then again, posted version 6 back. So I've been kind of flip-flopping back and forth between these two. And if at any point there was a reason why I would need to see them side by side or see them overlaid on top of one another, all I'd have to do is use that same compare versions tool. And because we can access Civil 3D drawings from BIM 360 docs online as well, it's the same result that we see with a standard AutoCAD file or even some of the Revit files that Scott had been showing earlier. So this is my current design with version 6 in red, version 3 in blue. See that it was closer to the road there earlier. And then because of that markup and the issue that was addressed, it's now farther away. Overlaying would just simply give you 2 different color options, but you can also do a side-by-side effect where you can use a slider bar to see the transition from one design to the next. So in this case, I am able to go back through any 2 versions in that entire version history list, and I can compare them or overlay them if I need to see what happened from one to another. And if there is any reason for a previous version to be the design file, once again, all I need to do there is make it current. And because everything is being now run through BIM 360 Docs with Civil 3D 2020, everything is running as we expect from within the application. There's not a lot that changes within my workflow besides the fact that now when I'm setting working folders or when I'm looking for files or when I'm starting to open files here, I have direct access to that BIM 360 location. And this is not something that's, again, available pre-2020. So in that 2019 version, entirely different start tab, different icons are going to pop up. There's no cloud option for data shortcuts. There's no cloud option for the drawing files themselves. One additional capability that we have with the design access and the fact that data shortcuts here are working with BIM 360 is that if we need to establish a file project folder structure, we can take advantage of the data shortcuts new data shortcut project folder item, and you can say use a project template. And if I've got sample project templates that have predefined sets of folders and subfolders that I want to establish in a relatively manageable level, I can use some of these preset template files to create those folders. And that's actually what was done here in order to establish the design documents, PDF files, plot drawings. So I have a template file that's got these 5 or 6 subfolders below that. And I could do that through Civil 3D directly from data shortcuts. So that's where we have some of these enhancements with Civil 3D 2020.2 plus BIM 360 design and the desktop connector. So Scott, let me turn this line back over to you.
All right, thanks. All right. So again, I just want to mention here that there's plenty of online resources to learn how to use the technology. The help files are actually quite good inside of BIM 360 Design and Docs. Very well, and there's a lot of resources on Autodesk page website as well. Additionally, though, we do offer services here at Imagine It. We have these jumpstart services, as we call them, to help you get jump started on Docs. So in this case, it's just a half-day session. And we're going to go over, the account administration, project administration, and all the document management for your team. We just do this all remotely. Everyone can log in just like you're logging in now, and we'll go over this, but directly for your company, just for you, just for your circumstances. Do maybe a little customization of the system while we're online with you. We also have the same for design. This is a one-day service here for BIM 360 Design. Because design requires docs, we cover all of docs, and then all the features in design, the ones that I showed you, plus some of the other features that make it even more powerful. So we're going to cover all those things. And then Matt, if you just want to talk briefly about the Civil 3D Jumpstart.
Right, for structure customers, we are offering a BIM 360 Jumpstart for Civil 3D. This is a one-day remote education service covering the BIM 360 features that are usable within or applicable to Civil 3D. It covers BIM 360 account administration, project administration, and then goes over the workflow within Civil 3D that's enabled when you have access to BIM 360 Docs and design.
Great, thanks. So kind of just finish off here. So for more information, you can go to the Autodesk website. They have a COVID-19 resource center. You can also go to the our Imagine It website, and we have our own links to help you, including links to webinars such as this, and we have the link to the Autodesk website, so you can start with ours and you can get to all these locations. So with that, I want to now open this up to question and answers. So what I'm going to do here, let me just pull up the Q&A area there if I can find it, and then we can go ahead and go over that. So just bear with me for just a second. I may have to stop sharing because I can't seem to be able to see that unless I do that. Let's see here. All right, so I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute. Have that up. All right, so we're now in the Q&A session here. So I'm going to try to read these questions, and Matt chime in if it's more of a civil answer, of course, for you as well. So let me just pull this up a little bit so I can see it a little bit better. Sometimes it gets a little tricky. There we go. All right. So I have a question here for existing customers. I want to confirm if employees want to use the free trial. Should they sign up using their company email or a personal domain, or does it matter? So what you want to do if you want to use the free trial is just have someone in your company use your company domain. That's probably the best way to do it. Your company email address. Just sign up for a free trial and then invite everyone in with your company trials. That's it. All into your either docs or your design site. That's all you need to do. If you're an existing client, then what you want to do there is pick one person in your firm. Maybe they just use their home email address, or someone who's not using design right now. Set up one trial account, and then in the trial BIM 360 design account, invite everyone into that. Once they're invited into the trial account, you can go to your paid account and actually invite all those people into your account, and they will be using the design license from the trial in your account. So it's actually fairly easy. Another question here is, if we don't use Revit, do you need design? No, if you're not using Revit and you're not using Civil 3D and you don't want to collaborate in the cloud, then Docs is all that you need access to. Another question here, do you need BIM 360 for each person that will be added to the hub? Yeah, so in other words, if you have a hub, you just add people to it. They don't have to get their own individual trials. You only have to have one trial of docs and invite as many people in as you like. Or if you have one trial of design set up, again, invite all the people in there and that's it. So you only need one hub. Another question here, and we have projects in 2017 and 2019. Do they need to move the 2017 projects to Revit 2019 prior to using the BIM service? Normally, the answer might have been no, but I believe with the trial, the team site, the old collaboration for Revit is not included. So in this case, yes, you cannot use 2017 in the free trial. If you have a paid site, then you could actually use 2017. But otherwise, you'll have to upgrade everything to at least 2018.3 and above in order to use the new BIM 360 design site. That's important there. So, and again, does everyone in the hub need a BIM 360 license? Yes, but in that case, you just have to invite everyone into the hub, and then they have answers there. They have access to it. All right. Could you? Okay, someone's just looking for a video link. That's fine. Yeah. So again, this is recorded, and you'll be able to come to our website if you want to watch it later or let other people see it. So another question here: when should teams be set up as the project admin side, which creates a folder structure automatically? So basically here, the administrators of the site, of the whole hub, they're the ones that create projects, and they can assign someone as a project administrator. When you're creating a project in either Docs or Design, there's an option when you first turn on Docs that you can copy the folder structure from a previous project and make it the same folder structure in your current. So most firms will create a template project with the structure they want in it. And then when they create a new project, they pick that one as the template. That way, the new project they create will mimic the folder structure. So right now, that's limited to the folder structure, and any role permissions that you put in that template project will also be carried over. But individual permissions or company permissions will not, at least at this time. So another question here was, how do you set up a company? Is it just a group with external users in it? Yeah, in the system, you're basically just creating a company name and then assigning a certain, what does it do? Is it an architect, a mason, whatever? Then when you add users, you simply have to tell it what company that they belong to. It could be just your company or whatever other company is, because company is just a way to control permissions. That's why it's in there. All right, here. So it says right here, so basically you can give someone access to, say, 30 years of conditions. Okay, this looks like it's maybe a civil question, but it's okay. So basically you can give someone access to, say, 30 years of farming, environmental conditions and solutions for a discuss price. Once the customer subscribes to the info that I have in my file box, or he has access to all the data I've collected and curated. I'm not really sure what that's asking, other than yes, you can put information into a project in BIM 360, invite them into your project, and then they can see whatever data that you wish to share with them, whether it be PDF, AutoCAD, documents, Word files, Excel. I think that's what that's really meaning there. All right, so are Revit uploaded files available for design work sharing? So basically, when you put a file up into BIM 360 design, that is what that's for. You're allowed to have work sharing in there. You can have multiple people open the file. And if you give consultant access, consultant also has a design license, free or trial. You can invite them into your project, give them a workspace, and they can upload and work on their file in the same environment like I showed, and you can link each other's files in. Or you could give a consultant, just invite them in, but they're only going to use docs. And in that case, they're just going to upload the model for you to link in. In that case, you cannot use file link directly. You have to go file link and then use the desktop connector to get to manually uploaded files. So if someone just drags and drops a Revit file up there, you can absolutely link it into your model, but you need to use the desktop connector to do it. The regular linking path through design doesn't work for that. That only works for cloud work shared models. All right, here, so let's see. So for work sharing, you need to use collaborate in the cloud option. Okay, that was an answer someone was given there. Sorry about that. Let's see, do you have to upload all the files that are linked? No, you don't. That's a good question. You could have files locally linked in if you want to, although it is recommended really that you all do keep them in the cloud. All right, here, let's see. So what happens if you missed a child file when you open the parent file? Will it notify you that it's missing a link? No, it won't do that. So when you're uploading files that are linked, you need to use your due diligence to make sure you are picking all the files, because it will not notify you if there's a missing link in this case. It might notify you if you were kind of opening the file. You could kind of do that through the desktop connector and open it and see if any links are missing. But then you would, as far as I know, have to kind of re-upload all the files again to make sure you get all of them. That one's a little trickier, that one right there. All right, here. All right, so does BIM 360 design work with Civil 3D like it does in Revit? And again, we covered that, but again, it's different. BIM 360 design has a whole separate mechanism for working in the cloud, and so does Civil. So Civil 3D has its own mechanisms for accessing BIM 360 design in that cloud environment, as Matt had already shown there. All right, here. So do you need to have an installed and licensed version of Revit on the computer you're working from home to access BIM 360 project? Yeah, so basically, yes. So if you have a project in BIM 360 and you need to work on it from home, then obviously at home, you need to have Revit installed and a fully licensed version. So that is important. You cannot work on a cloud-based model if you don't have Revit. That could be on a laptop. If you have network licenses, as long as you are legally allowed through the home use policy to install Revit locally on your own hardware if your firm allows that. And then you may need the VPN to get a network license or however it's licensed. And then once you have the live version and you have a BIM 360 login, yes, you can answer the file. But bottom line, you must have a licensed version at home. Now, if you just want to go to the web page, though, and view the files and markup and issues, all you need is your Autodesk ID. And you can view the files, you can look at them, you just can't edit them, of course. So it does, give you similar access in that regard. So another question here, what happens if 2 or more people try to open that Arch base file single file system at the same time? In that case, it's going to be kind of like the last person who saves wins, right? So if someone else opens it and then another person opens it, whoever saves last is the one that's going to get overridden. So it doesn't really let you know, because there is no design collaboration happening there. It's meant that if you're using LT, you would know that you're the only one working in it, or if it's regular Revit. So you just have to be careful about that. Again, Last one that saves wins. It's just like with AutoCAD. If there was no file locking, right? Both people used to be able to open the file at one point. Of course, that was fixed many years ago. All right. Oh, that was questionable when I lost the audio there. Let's see what happens here. All right, so another question here. Do I need desktop connector to link files, or can I just download them from the website? Yeah, so you can do one of those two things. You can go to the website and download the files locally and then link them in that way. Or, again, a lot of people like to leave them in the cloud and link them through the desktop connector. So you can do either of those, but of course, leaving it in the cloud means that if someone updates it, your background just updates. If you want that to happen, sometimes you don't. Totally understandable. So yeah, you can just download them and link them locally if you choose to do that. It's totally at your discretion. All right, so there's another question here. It's at least asking Matt. I'm assuming it's a civil question here. So it says, if using BIM 360 for collaboration, civil team, how does the BIM 360 accommodate changes to external references and data references? Will one team member see changes as data or X references are changed by the other team members?
So this one's going to behave very similar to what we're seeing now, because with access to BIM 360 docs and design within Civil 3D 2020.2 or later, that is all tying back into the BIM 360 location. So as we save files that have updated objects that are being data referenced, or we save drawings that have changes made that are being XREF'd, we can simply synchronize those data shortcuts and upload or reload those references, and we should be able to see the changes automatically. Because it's just hosting a new version each time, but keeping the name the same, it's essentially going to work with that same file path that was established previously. So you should be able to see those changes once they're synchronized and reloaded.
All right, thanks. So another question, what's the best way to have two people work on a Revit model at the same time other than using work sets to avoid having to ask for permission from the other person using the files? Really, there is no best. The best way to have two people work on a Revit model is work sharing, and that is really what it was created for, is to be able to work together on a model. You check out the items you work on, and when you save to central, you relinquish access to them. Otherwise, you'd have to either have IM up or whatever and say, hey, I'm opening the Revit model. Can you close it while I work on it? Or if you're editing something, you need editing permission. Yeah, we'll just have Skype or some IM up, and then you can talk to people when you're working. It's probably the easiest way to do it. I'm assuming most offices are using either Teams or Microsoft or Skype or something. You can use any of those, would be what I would recommend doing. Another question is a good one here. Can BIM 360 be used to send share files to consultants who do not have a BIM 360 subscription? Well, a few days ago, the answer would be no, but that's actually now different. There is an option in BIM 360 docs, really, where what you can do is you are allowed to share a link to a file with external people who do not have licenses. So this only allows them to download the file, not link directly into the system. But if you want to take a file and send it to someone via email, you can go into the system, pick a file, hit share, use the option to share it with an outside person, and your administrator actually has to turn this feature on inside of the BIM 360 project administration area. There's a place where you turn on allowing people to share external links. And then you can send a link via email to a non-owner, of a non-licensed bearer of the software, and they can absolutely download the file. Again, it does not let them into the system. What it does do, though, allows them to download any file that you would like to share with someone. So it's a little bit like Dropbox there, where you have to own a subscription to Dropbox, but you can absolutely share a file with people outside your system that don't even have a license. So you can absolutely do that. They don't even need an Autodesk ID or anything. They can absolutely access that file. All right, another question here. If we put a drawing detail in the reference folder, can we just do a Revit add-in pull? I'm not sure if I know what that is, as a reference and collaborate back and forth the same as you do in Civil 3D. So yes, you can put AutoCAD files into BIM 360. You absolutely, via the desktop connector, can link details into your Revit sheet if you want. So I'm assuming that's what we're talking about here. so that you can have a folder called details, individual details, and you can link them into Revit if you need to do that. You would just need to use a desktop connector for non-Revit files, that's all. But again, the advantage is they all still live in the cloud, so that's certainly a nice thing. So another question here, are there best practice suggestions for setting up a folder structure in BIM 360 docs? And not really. I mean, other than the way you're setting it up now to work internally. Other than in this case, because you can work with external consultants, it's really simply about having one folder per design team. I think that's really the best way to do it. You know, where you put that folder and how far down in the system you want is up to you. I am always on the want to keep folder structures simple and not too complicated and not too deep. And don't try to just make copies of the file. Let BIM 360 do the version control, which can also help with a lot of that extra folders. A lot of people are making copies of files and legitimately you should be doing this. You need version control and you want to keep a copy of a previous save or something for whatever reason. Well, BIM 360 is kind of doing that for you automatically through version control, so that can eliminate some of that work. So folder structure is still up to you. Less is more, as I always like to say there. So just try to keep it simple, but I guess the key word is one folder for each design team is the best way to do it, in my opinion. So another question here, can you link a file from your server to a Revit file living on the BIM 360 design? You can do that, and as long as everyone who's accessing the file in the cloud is in your office and has access to that location, the link will work. But if you sent that file to someone outside of your company, right, or you were not in the office when you tried to access the model, you would not have access to that linked Revit file. So that's going to be the only issue, especially in this situation where everyone's working from home. You really don't want to be doing that. You really want to be keeping everything in the cloud. There's no file storage limitations. Again, you have full control over who can see these folders. So there's no security risk. You can make it view only for very specific individuals. If they should be seeing it in the link, then they can have access to it. So I don't see it as being really a major issue, but it can be done if you really wanted to do it. And again, here, I linked the file in. It said, someone asked it, hey, I linked the MEP model in origin. Does that change when you have civil 3D shared points? And it does. And can you talk about that a little bit, Matt? You're probably a little bit more versed than I am on that side of it.
Sure. So whenever you're doing that shared reference point coordinate, you're essentially just reestablishing where that reference point is. And if you're linking a Revit MEP file with a Revit architecture file that are both set up with the standard model origin where it's not anywhere near like a civil 3D geographic coordinate system, you likely want to do that ahead of time. And in Scott's model, I believe what was done is he linked in all of the Revit pieces together first, and then he went in and assigned that shared coordinate and then linked in the civil 3D topo surface. So I would say, if it's Revit to Revit, then you would likely want to make sure that that origin point is consistent. Otherwise, it might show up off the side. I'm not too familiar with how that shared reference point origin, if it assigns it to the entire model or if it's just for that piece, because I know the icon changes. So if it's referring back to like a Revit origin with the triangular shaped icon compared to the site origin that's linked in with that circle icon, that's something you might need to test.
All right. So another question, if the cloud model automatically opens a local file for you, how as a BIM manager would I access the central file to perform audits or other management on the central file? There's no real easy answer to that other than what you would probably do here is take the file that's in the cloud and I would just rename it. And then I would save it locally first, if you will. So open the file, save it locally, change the name of the file up in the cloud, and then upload, recreate the shared file in the cloud, like create a brand new shared model. So you'll lose the previous restores for that one, but you'll still see the previous restores in the other file. So just give it a slightly different name and you'll still have access to all your previous saves as central. In that case, you want to take that drawing, maybe put it in a different folder or give it a date timestamp. Hey, this is today's date timestamp is maybe once a week you do this, or every 2 weeks you do model maintenance, which is actually a very good idea to do, as you said. So I would rename the file that's in the cloud, but before I do that, download a local copy onto your workstation. Do the maintenance there. Once it's been cleaned up, whatever, reinitiate it as a cloud model, but with the same name everyone else was using. That way all the links will work. And then the one that was already there that you gave a different name to is still there, and it still remembers all of its previous saved essentials, so that record is still there, which is good. So you still have all that information with that file. This is a different name. And that's basically how I would do that. So again, download, fix it up, rename the file in the existing location, and reinitiate the work sharing with the cleaned up file is the basic process, if that makes sense. Another issue here, and this is actually a good question too, the restore procedure for Revit models is an admin function. Is there any way to prevent people from doing this? And unfortunately, to the best of my knowledge, not right now. I don't know if that's, I haven't tested this, but I think anyone can do that. I don't think you have to be an administrator. So there unfortunately isn't really any way to do that. So maybe the best way is just don't tell anyone they can, or keep that a little bit secret, if you will. I honestly don't know. I've never tested that to see if non-administrators can do that function. That's actually a pretty good question. All right, here. So I think we have time for maybe one more question. Let's see. So when you remove from the C drive, does it remove it from the cloud, or do you have to delete it from the cloud? Yeah, if you delete a file through the desktop connector, it will delete the file from the cloud. But here's the thing: once a file is in the cloud, kind of like Facebook, once you post something there, it's there forever. When a file is in BIM 360, once it's been put there, that's it. It's never being deleted. You can delete it from there, and what it does is it places it into a unique deleted folder for each folder. So every folder has its own deleted folder, and everything stays permanently in the deleted folder. The deleted folder is never emptied, but it does remove it from the active directory. But anyone can go into that deleted folder and restore the file if necessary. So yes, it removes it from the C drive and will remove it, but there's never really any true danger of totally losing a file in BIM 360, because once it's up there, it's kind of there forever. So I think we've got to the end of our time here. It's a few minutes past. Certainly if you want to contact your local sales rep, we could set up a call if you have further questions or you'd like to see a deeper demo, of course. But with that, I don't know if there's anything else you need to finish up with, Katana.
Thank you so much. This was recorded. We'll make sure to get everybody a copy, and we'll post this to our resource center and to our YouTube page. And thank you so much for joining.
Yep, and thank you, everyone. Truly appreciate your time.
Thank you.